the most underrated Linux desktop environment. Why Xfce still wins in 2026. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you have spent any time in Linux communities, you know how these desktop environments debates usually go. Everyone's talking about GNOME with its sleek modern workflow, or KDE Plasma and its endless customization options. Tiling window managers like i3 or Xfce get their moment too. But there is one desktop environment that almost never steals the headlines, yet somehow ends up being the one a huge number of experienced Linux users eventually stick with for years. That environment is Xfce. Today, I'm making the case that Xfce is hands down the most underrated desktop environment in Linux history. It's not flashy, it doesn't chase trends, and it's often dismissed as just a lightweight option for older hardware. But after digging into its history, real world performance, and what actual users say, I'm convinced it's one of the smartest, most practical choices you can make on Linux right now, even on brand new machines. So, let's start with a bit of history because Xfce has serious staying power. It was created back in late 1996 by French developer Oliver Fouden, originally called the Xforms Common Environment. It was inspired by the commercial CDE desktop that ran on Unix workstations at the time. The project went through a couple of rewrites, switched to the GTK toolkit, and by the early 2000s had become the modular, lightweight desktop we recognize today. We are now on Xfce 4.20, released in December 2024, and the team is already working on native VLAN support with a brand new compositor called XFWL4. That's nearly 30 years of steady, drama free development, something very few desktop projects can claim. What really sets Xfce apart is its philosophy. While other environments try to reinvent how you use a computer, Xfce sticks to the classic desktop metaphor and the traditional Unix idea of modularity and simplicity. It's built from separate, reusable components: the XFWM window manager, the excellent Tuner file manager, a highly configurable panel, a settings manager, and a handful of core apps like the terminal, image viewer, and media player. Everything is designed to be fast, low on system resources, and most importantly, predictable. And that predictability matters more than you might think. You get a familiar menu, panels that behave exactly the way you expect, virtual desktops you can actually rely on, and windows that open, resize, and minimize without any surprises. No forced activities overview, no disappearing title bars unless you want them, and no constant interface experiments. For a lot of people, especially those who just want to get work done, that stability is pure gold. Now, let's talk performance. Because this is where Xfce has always shone. Benchmarks in 2026 still show Xfce idling around 250 MB of RAM on a typical setup. That's dramatically lighter than GNOME, which often sits over 1 GB, or even a configured KDE Plasma around 400 MB. On older laptops or in virtual machines, it feels snappy. But here is the part people miss. It also feels snappy on powerful modern hardware because it simply stays out of your way. Your browser, code editor, or video editor gets more resources instead of the desktop fighting them for memory and CPU. Startup is quick, animations are optional, and the whole experience never feels bloated. But Xfce isn't stripped down or boring. The customization sweet spot is one of its secret weapons. You can move panels anywhere, stack multiple panels, add or remove plugins, change themes, icons, window decorations, keyboard shortcuts, pretty much everything. The difference is that the settings tool are straightforward and don't bury you in endless nested options like KDE sometimes does. You get real flexibility without turning desktop tweaking into a part-time hobby. Want a macOS style dock? Easy. Want a Windows 11 look? Totally doable in minutes. Want to keep it super minimal? Just as easy. So, why doesn't Xfce get more love in YouTube videos, Reddit threads, or future of the Linux desktop discussions? Two big reasons. First, tech communities naturally chase novelty. Projects that promise radical new ways of working generate buzz. Xfce's approach, make the classic desktop better and more reliable, doesn't sound revolutionary, so it flies under the radar. Second, it's been so successful as a lightweight option that many people assume it's only for older hardware. In reality, plenty of users run it on high end rigs simply because they value efficiency and a desktop that disappears when you don't need it. Look at where Xfce is actually powering complete operating systems in 2026. Xubuntu has built its entire identity around it. Linux Mint offers a polished Xfce edition that many people prefer over the cinnamon version for speed. MX Linux, which consistently ranks near the very top of DistroWatch popularity charts, uses Xfce as its flagship desktop and has earned a massive reputation for stability and ease of use. Fedora also ships an official Xfce spin, and you will find it in Kali Linux, Manjaro Xfce, and several other solid distros. These aren't niche projects, they are mature, user focused operating systems built on Xfce because it just works. But don't get me wrong, GNOME and KDE are fantastic in their own ways. If you love gesture driven workflows or deep visual customization, they are excellent. But for a huge group of users who have tried everything and finally settled on something reliable, Xfce keeps winning quietly. In a Linux world that sometimes prioritizes shiny new features over rock solid consistency, Xfce proves that restraint can be a feature, not a limitation. It's efficient, familiar, customizable without the fatigue, and backed by decades of thoughtful development. Whether you're on a 10-year-old laptop, a powerful workstation, or just want a desktop that stays out of your way while you focus on real work, Xfce delivers exactly what it promises. If you have never given it a proper try, I highly recommend downloading Xubuntu, the Linux Mint Xfce edition, or MX Linux and spending a weekend with it. You might be surprised how quickly it feels like home. So, what do you think? Is Xfce underrated? Or have you already been using it for years? Drop your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more Linux deep dives, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and I'll catch you soon. Peace out.